my husband worked from home right now, I'd be calling him into the bedroom and saying, it's time to bow chicka wow wow, because I'm pretty sure I'm having ovulation pain right now. Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Nicole. I'm a pelvic floor specialist. I am also a mom of 2 that is hoping to be a mom of 3 in the future. And this video is all about where I am in my let's get pregnant journey. Right now, today, in the last couple days, I have been in the ovulation or the peak fertility window. Now is the time to start focusing on having intercourse if we want to get pregnant. Even though I'm using the Natural Cycles app to kind of tell me when my peak fertility is, and they are basing their predictions based on my basal body temperature, which I have been tracking for almost a month now. Unfortunately, I went through a vacation. Well, it wasn't unfortunate. It was awesome actually. But during that time, I went through some time changes. I didn't have regular sleep patterns. I was consuming alcohol, and all those things can affect how my basal body temperature shows up each morning. So I'm not exactly sure how accurate the prediction is. So I've also been looking at other things like cervical mucus. I'm looking for that egg white mucus, which has definitely been here for sure today and yesterday. So that's a good sign of ovulation. Something else that I can usually detect is ovulation pain. As I already said, I'm definitely feeling some of that today. Finally, I did a ovulation stick, like luteinizing hormone detector test. And I haven't put that in the app yet because I'm running a little experiment about how good the app is at figuring out when I'm ovulating without that information. And I'm comparing it to a couple different apps. But at this point, all the signs are basically saying that right now is a very good time to have intercourse. And it's really funny because I'm making this video and I'm like, oh yeah, I've looked for all these signs of ovulation and I seem so confident. But honestly, the things that for months I've been like, oh yeah, I'm for sure ovulating today, I'm like second guessing. Every time I take a test, I'm like, is that line really as dark as I think it is? Is this ovulation pain? Is that ovulation pain? Is this mucus actually egg white? Like just doubting everything that I've been so sure of because it like actually matters now. If you've ever been curious about how using ovulation sticks work, I'm going to show you a little bit of footage of me using them for the last 3 days, and you're also going to see me like second guessing everything in these videos. Greetings from my bathroom. My app is saying that today is supposed to be peak fertility, so you're supposed to use the stick right away in the morning. I did. Unfortunately, it didn't show anything, so I don't know what happened. Not really sure why, but it's completely blank, so it obviously didn't work. It's a little bit older. It is from probably about 3 years ago, and I took it out of the packaging, so maybe that's why. But I have another one here that is still in the packaging, so we're gonna give it a try here. So with these sticks, you're supposed to pee on them for about 6 seconds and then leave them nice and flat. So I just put the cap back on, and then I'm just gonna leave it nice and flat here. And I can already see that the liquid is like traversing. I don't wanna, here, maybe I can turn it this way. I'm not sure if you can see that, but see how it's like kind of purpley? So I know that the urine is where it's supposed to be, so I'm gonna wait 3 to 5 minutes and we'll check it out and see if indeed I am ovulating. The good news is that this test worked. This is the first one I did. There's nothing in there. You can see that didn't work. This is the second one, and you can see that both the control window and the test window have color. It's about the same like shade of color, but this line isn't as thick. So there's kind of what the instructions say, and it more goes by darkness of the line versus like the thickness of the line. So I'm really thinking that this is a positive test. I'm also thinking I wish I would have got newer tests so I would have known. I think maybe the fact that these are so old is why they're kind of hard to read and interpret. So I think I need to go to the store, get some newer ovulation sticks, and try this again. So I bought some more ovulation sticks that are new and fresh and sealed up, and it's 1 day later from my first ovulation test. This is also a different brand, but I don't know that that really matters. Anyways, my app keeps changing according to my basal body temperature, saying that like my peak fertility was 2 days ago, and then it was yesterday, and now it's saying it's today. So I don't think it's convinced that I've hit peak fertility. So we're gonna do another test and see what it says. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm wearing a romper, and I always forget how hard and awkward it is to go to the bathroom. Anyways, test complete. Let me just show you here. I have to get the paper out to see what a positive for sure is going to be like, but those lines are telling me that it did indeed soak up the pee and it is going to tell me something. So I will let you know in about 3 to 5 minutes what this test says. So with this test, what it says, I'll show you in just a minute, is that if the lines are the same color, that there is an LH surge. But if the one closest to the arrow is lighter than the far one, which is darker, then there is no like LH hormone surge and you're not ovulating. But mine are both light and I don't see that as an option. So I'm like, I think that means there's an LH surge because they're the same like darkness, but I'm not for sure. Anyways, I'm gonna show you guys. You guys can help me figure out if there is a surge or not. Okay, so you can see what the directions say. This would be, yes, there is a surge, they're the same darkness, and this one would be, no, there's not, because this one is lighter. But I feel like these are pretty dark compared to mine, where they're both kind of like the same darkness, but also both really light. So I think I'm ovulating. I think that's a positive test, but now I'm just not certain. It's day 3 of looking for LH hormone on my ovulation stick, and this time I made sure to do it right away in the morning because I know that's actually when the test says it should be done. In the last 2 days, it's just worked out for different reasons that I've had to do it in the afternoon. Anyways, I did this test in the morning and it definitely looks like we have a positive today. Here's the test for day 3. This is our surge line, which is definitely as dark, if not darker, than the reference line. So I would definitely say we have a positive test today. One thing that's different this third time around compared to the second time around was that we are planning to get pregnant. So let's take you back to the beginning. With my first son, we had been trying for a while. It was like 9 months before we got pregnant. Then we had a miscarriage. We had to try again. And so that was a really long process. I felt like I knew everything that was going on with my body. And like I knew when I was ovulating. I knew when we needed to have intercourse. And it was like became somewhat of a full-time job of me just like paying so close attention to everything going on with my body. Fast forward to my second pregnancy, we weren't like really trying to not get pregnant, but obviously we weren't being careful enough because my second son was born very unplanned. I actually didn't even know I was pregnant until about 6 weeks pregnant. And so it just made the dynamic of like having intercourse to get pregnant totally different. This time around, again, we're back to that like trying phase, and while I'm not like in an urgent hurry right now, it's still weird how it affects like me and my husband's intimacy, because my husband was actually telling me the other night, he's like, I kind of feel like a piece of meat during this like getting pregnant phase, and I've heard this from other men as well, is it kind of feels like intercourse loses that like spark, that excitement, and it's not just for pleasure anymore. There's definitely a purpose behind it. And in our relationship, it's definitely me like knowing exactly when things are going to happen. And we go from this schedule of like once a week, even though we would both love to do it more, it's just with our life right now, it doesn't happen. So we go from like once a week to like every other day, or maybe 2 days in a row, day off, 2 days in a row. My husband is like, I want to really enjoy this, but it feels a little bit forced, and I totally agree. It takes away from like, oh, I want to do it because I want to do it, to like, I want to do it because we need to do it, we need to make a baby, and it really changes the dynamic. And I know for us with our first time around trying to get pregnant, where it took 9 months to a year, it was really straining almost on our relationship. And so even though it feels like, okay, I'm fertile, we should be having intercourse every day, for me, I don't want to do that right now because it feels like too much pressure. It feels like it would be forced. I feel like it would actually be more stressful, which stress is something that's not good for getting pregnant. So for us during this last fertile window, we've been doing it. We did it 2 nights. We took a night off. We'll probably do it again tonight because I do feel like I'm ovulating, but I'm not putting that pressure on myself that we have to do it every day. We're definitely not doing it multiple times a day because that just isn't natural for our relationship, and it feels really straining or forced. So don't feel guilty if you're like, I just don't want to do it every day. That's completely fine. After looking at the ovulation sticks, it kind of looks like there's been some luteinizing hormone in my urine for the last 3 days. And so you might be wondering like, well, I only ovulate and the egg is only there for about 24 hours. So what does that all mean? Basically, once you show a positive test with your ovulation sticks, that is probably going to be positive for about 72 hours. And ideally, it's great if you can start having intercourse a couple days before you have that positive test, because sperm can stay in the body for about 5 days. So I really like that because it doesn't feel like we have to have intercourse 4 times today because I'm ovulating. It can be like we can spread it out over about a week, and we can do, every other day. And there's still lots of chance that there is sperm in there. And the last thing I really want to talk about in this video is that just relying solely on an app, especially if you just started using it to get pregnant, can be a little bit misleading, because the app is gathering information over time to try to find patterns and try to figure out when you're ovulating. And for me, because I just started using this app about a month ago, even though I put past period information in there, I don't have basal body temperature, I don't have the exact days of ovulation every time. And so it's not exactly sure when my peak fertility is. So the last 4 days I've opened my app and it said peak fertility, peak fertility, peak fertility. And it's really only supposed to say that one day. Now there is a window where it you'll see the color build up and it gets brighter red. So in those days, it's yeah, it's a good idea to have intercourse, but there's really one day where they think you're ovulating. But because I don't have multiple cycles in the system of the app, it's not sure when my peak fertility is. So if you just started using an app and you just started trying to get pregnant, make sure that you're open to the idea of listening to your body and not ignoring some of the signs that you're like, I'm pretty sure I'm ovulating even though my app doesn't say that I'm ovulating, or being prepared for the fact that my app said I was ovulating a week ago and it's still saying I'm ovulating. Is that possible? It's just that the app is trying to learn you and learn patterns. I feel like it could very easily be 3 months before we get pregnant before I would start to feel stressed about it. That being said, I still know that if my period shows up or I do end up doing a pregnancy test and it's negative, I'm probably still going to be disappointed. There's just something about trying to achieve something, having zero control over whether it happens or not. And there's that excitement that it might happen, and then that disappointment if it doesn't happen. So I'm not going to be hard on myself if that happens, because it most likely is going to be happening. And the other thing is that it's about 2 weeks before my next period. The best pregnancy test out there can only detect pregnancy 3 days before your missed period. I am not really a big fan of doing early pregnancy tests. Now with my first pregnancy, I most certainly did them as soon as possible. But now I'm a little less stressed about it and not in such a hurry. So I'm probably just gonna wait and see if my period shows up. If it doesn't, then I'll do the pregnancy test. In the meantime, I'm cutting out those things that aren't gonna be good for me while I'm pregnant, lowering alcohol consumption, lowering caffeine consumption, and trying to kind of adjust my body for what it needs to do when I am pregnant. And also knowing that I could become pregnant at any time. So having my body as healthy as possible is just gonna be an overall benefit for everyone. I'm also focusing on exercising, healing up my diastasis recti that's still left over from my last 2 pregnancies, and being really regular about exercising, establishing those good habits, because as I said in this video over here, it really is a good idea to exercise while you're trying to get pregnant, and all the reasons why are in that video. I would love to hear in the comments if you're trying to get pregnant, if you think you might want to get pregnant someday, and exactly where you're at in your fertility journey. I will see you all in the next video. See you then.